Welcome. I am your host, Cindy Watson, and today it is truly my great pleasure to introduce you to Dimple Dang. We are going to talk about how marketing can help you practice with purpose. And I've been so lucky to meet Dimple in Clubhouse. I have consistently been impressed with her. To say that is an understatement. She is a passionate legal marketing expert, and she helps law firms take their marketing to the next level. I have seen her speak on this subject with such passion and clarity. I know she's helped tons of people do that. She's got over 20 years of experience working with top law firms all across the United States and beyond, frankly. She's the host of Mesmerizing Marketing and the founder of Reels for Lawyers Challenge, which I've seen some super fun stuff come out of that. And Dimple is also, because that's not enough, a contributing editor for Attorney at Law magazine, and she writes articles on online marketing and social media for the legal industry. So welcome, Dimple. It is so great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Cindy.
So why don't we kickstart with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what made you decide to specialize in marketing for lawyers?
Well, back in the day when I used to work for corporate America, I started, I guess, not started, I started in the banking industry, but one of my, jobs to follow the banking industry is that I worked for the Yellow Pages. So when you remember the Yellow Pages
Oh,
back in
gotcha.
books, I was one of the, girls like selling marketing and selling the full page ads and those directory books. And because of that, a lot of my clients were lawyers and I just realized, I was working with them early on and I just realized I really liked working with them. And I think part of it is because I wanted to go to law school, but at the time I just didn't want to have to go to school for an extra 3 years and study. So I think that's part of it. I really love what lawyers do. I love that they help people and I almost am living vicariously through them. So I really enjoy working with them. But back, in the day, like I was meeting lawyers that were personal injury lawyers, divorce lawyers, all kind of lawyers. And I was working in the Yellow Pages. And then after the Yellow Pages, I went to work for, other corporations where I was selling, the sponsored ads on Google that rank on page one. And so I've just always worked with lawyers and it just became a specialization because if it was up to me or I had a choice, which I did, like who do I want to go after?
Yeah.
Those are the accounts that I would go after because I just really enjoyed working with them and I really had a clear understanding of their business as well. And that's really important because the legal industry is very different, right, from other industries.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you knew right out of the gate. You targeted the clients that you wanted. And it's interestingly, I think one of the problems with law, we're so conditioned from that scarcity mindset. Take on as many clients as you can. I think so many lawyers become disenchanted because they take on clients rather, that just aren't a great fit. So I'd love your insights on where do you see in your experience having worked with lawyers for so long and having that objective perspective, where are lawyers making their biggest mistakes in marketing what they do?
I think the biggest mistake that they're making is that they're not open to new ideas. They're just stuck on the old and the past, and they're stuck in in the ways of old school marketing.
Yeah.
Old school marketing doesn't work anymore. So even when Yellow Pages was working, there's a time when it stopped working because what happened is the internet started to take over
Yeah.
and everyone started to say, well, it's not working as well. So those who were, willing to adapt to, the environment and they pivoted and they started, putting part of their budgets in online marketing, those are the law firms that were really successful. The other thing that I see happens that, really can be detrimental to law firms and to any business is that when business is slow, when economic times are tough, a lot of these law firms or businesses, they stop their marketing or they cut down on their marketing because they think I need to cut my budget. But when you think about marketing, your marketing is not an expense. Your electricity that you pay for your office is an expense. Your office space is an expense, but your marketing is something that actually brings in revenue for your law firm. So what we found is that, when I saw like all of my, lawyers that I worked with, the ones that were smart, they did, Cindy, they actually doubled down and they upped their budgets because they knew that other people would be backing down. And that was their opportunity to become a leader, in their niche in the marketplace. And how they did that.
Yeah, so important. And you've hit on, clearly you've been working with lawyers for a while, because we do tend, I think lawyers, one of the big mistakes, we get stuck on those traditional ways, including, I mean, it's one of the reasons I started but sort of practicing with purpose, this whole concept, because, and finding a better way to practice. We're so stuck in that old competitive model, even how we practice law, we're rigid on, let alone how we market what we do. So I'd love if you could dig a little deeper on that. What are some of your top tips for lawyers on how should they be getting more visibility now? What are some of the things they can and ought to be doing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Cindy. So I think nowadays what it really comes down to, it is about building your personal brand. And when you build your personal brand, you're automatically going to build your law firm brand. And I think a lot of lawyers don't realize what a brand is. They don't realize the importance of building one. But, right now it's 2021 going into 2022. It is one of the most important things out there for lawyers to do. And I'll give you a prime example. So, I did a Reels for Lawyers challenge a couple of months ago. A lot of lawyers that I met from Clubhouse, they joined, and some of them never made an Instagram reel or TikTok, reel in their entire life. They did it for the first time. They embraced it,
Yeah.
and some of their reels went viral. And
Wow.
then a lot of them were consistent. They kept doing it even when the challenge ended. And so there's one of the ladies from UK, Sarah, she, does a ton of reels. And because of her efforts on social media, she was offered a job in the legal
Wow.
industry.
Yeah.
And she ended up taking that job, and that job opportunity came because people were noticing her. They were watching what she was doing. So I think it's really, really important to, create content and create a brand for yourself. And I say this even to the lawyers that are working at, big law firms and
Yeah.
large firms and big law, because your job is not guaranteed. There is no job insurance nowadays. You have to really work at, you have to have a plan B basically.
Yeah.
So if you build a personal brand for yourself, you are the brand as ESQ, as Esquire, your name, and then that title, you are an attorney. Now, you may work for a big firm, but if you were to leave that firm, you might go start your own firm. You might partner up with someone else, or you might go work for some other firm. But people, if they're going to hire you when you go start your own firm, they're going to hire you because of that know, like, and trust factor.
Yeah.
And it's very competitive when it comes to the legal industry right now. There's a ton of lawyers, in personal injury, ton of divorce lawyers, ton of employment law, you name it. There's like thousands of, attorneys that you have to compete with. So what you have to do is you have to stand out, and you do that by building a brand, and you do that by, setting up things like, having your own podcast, having a platform to share your voice gives you instant credibility. People view you as the expert. If you're like a, divorce mediator and you have a podcast and you have a book, that puts you in prime position to get that client of a like a high net worth client, and especially in divorce versus somebody who doesn't. So I think that you have to be doing that. You have to be doing press releases. Press releases are great also because of that they rank on page one of Google. So if you're strategic in how those press releases are written and you write them, for SEO, you can
Yeah.
get them to rank on page one of Google. I mean, we do press releases, for our clients. We do content creation. So content creation is key. By content creation, every law firm has a website. On your website, there's a blog. You should be creating fresh, relevant content on blog topics that are relevant
Yeah.
to your practice area niche. So if you are a divorce attorney, you should be writing about prenups. You should be writing about, co-parenting. You should be writing about what happens if one parent has to move to another city. How does that impact the whole custody thing? So, when you write content that answers the questions that people are asking online, they're going to find you on Google.
Yeah.
And a lot of clients, they write content, or well, they have me do it or they do it themselves, either way, but they're producing content on an ongoing basis. And what that does is over a period of time, it gets them to rank on Google organically multiple times for multiple keywords, which is really powerful because otherwise they would have to pay for that
Yeah.
on Google under the sponsored section. And that can be very expensive. And it is very expensive. I mean, I used to sell that back in the day. Once the budget runs out, it runs out. So those are a few things. I can share some more, but I'm going to let you see if you have any questions or follow up.
Well, and to all of our listeners and viewers out there, I got to say, you are going to want to go back and revisit this episode again, because that was a mic drop masterclass you got right there on some of the key hot tips. And it's interesting when you talk about branding and having a plan B. I'd even go a step further, Dimple, because even for lawyers who stay at their firm, if you love where you're at and you want to stay there, for most law firms, your compensation is dependent in large part on who you bring in. So you still need that personal brand to be attracting those clients and be able to get the kind of clients that you actually love working with, so you don't get so cynical about the practice. So has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I have a client that's, it's got a firm of maybe like 15 to 20 attorneys. And, there's one or two of them that are really good at marketing. They're involved in the community, they're on different committees, they're on different initiatives. And whenever they, help a client, in securities law, close a deal and facilitate a deal, and there's like a public offering, we write a blog post on it, we
Yeah.
promote it, on social media, so people know that this person is a leader in the space. So who are they going to hire? They're
Yeah.
going to hire that person. Now, does
Absolutely.
that person work for a particular brand firm? Yes, but they're going there because of the trust that they have in that
Yeah.
person, because of the social proof that's out there.
Yeah, beautiful. And I wouldn't mind if you can dig a little on the brand, because I think the term brand is one of the most misunderstood terms. You hear people use it improperly all the time. So, can you just give us a little bit more when you talk about building that personal brand for those lawyers out there who aren't sure how to start? What does that mean to you? What's the best way to describe it?
Yeah, you're right. So, Cindy, people do confuse the term brand, and a brand is not your logo. A
Yeah.
brand is your website colors. A brand is not your website. A brand really is how you and what you have to offer, the emotions that you can convey and depict in other people. How does like when people go to your website, how do they feel when they work with you? How do they feel? What's the outcome of them working with you? Like what's the emotional outcome? Are they, relieved? Do they feel more successful? Do they feel like they won? Do they feel like, you help them overcome a big battle or a big obstacle in their life? So it is about that. It is about, positioning. It is about having a mission statement. It is about having a vision for your company and for the future of your company. And even for the people that you retain to work with you, you need to have, procedures and policies and operating manuals. And how do you, how are things going to be handled at your organization, because it is up to you to set that stage for how you want that law firm to operate. And I think a lot of firms, like, they fail to do that. They just go at it like haphazardly and they're just doing it. But I think if you really want to be intentional about it, you have to be intentional even with your brand. Like, you can't just say, yeah, I want to do marketing, I want to do this. You really need to think about your brand. If you're opening up a new firm, you're partnering up with one other person, you want to think about, what's your differentiator? What differentiates you from all of your competition out there? Why would I want to hire you? Right? And I
Yeah.
think that's important, because if you can't answer that question,
Yeah.
like, how can you expect me to spend my money and hire you? Right? Because there's so many other people out there and there's so much competition and there's a lot of noise out there. And you have to set yourself to, stand out from the crowd. And one of the ways that a lot of attorneys are doing that now is they're creating Instagram reels, they're creating TikTok video, reels. So this is short form video content, and they're creating it in a manner that is what's called edutainment. It's educational and it's entertaining and it can even be funny. And the audience loves that, but they're building their audience. And at the same time, because they did something funny, sometimes it's even like an outtake that someone would take out, like they tripped over a box or something, but they would leave that in the video because it was funny and people remember that.
I love it. That
Resonate with.
was such a great example, a description of brand, by the way, one of the best I've heard. Like a really, because everybody, even some companies that purport to be experts on brand, it's all about you have to have this color, you have to have this, and really it's about who are you? Who do you want to be seen as? Who should people see you as? How do you practice? What do you stand for? So I thought that was a gorgeous description of that. And can you give us some examples about TikTok? Because I know some people, especially sort of that old school, more traditional approach, are going to be like, oh, that seems frivolous, or I don't get it, or it seems too intimidating. Can you give, a couple of simple examples of how you could do a TikTok reel that would help enhance your brand?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not as complicated as people think. It's actually quite simple. And one of the things that intimidates lawyers to starting, with TikTok or starting with Instagram Reels is they think they have to dance. And I always say you don't have to dance, but you can if you want to. Like I like to dance, I would dance, but you don't have to. You simply need to think of think of it this way. What are some of the most commonly asked questions that your clients always come to you and ask you? Make a list of those questions. Those are going to be your topics, right? And when they ask you these questions, that's going to be one TikTok video reel, right? One, and then you can even repurpose, them for both channels. And then literally you're going to talk about the answers to that question, or you're going to give 3 tips on this, or what to do if you got pulled over on Thanksgiving, things like that, right? And then what you want to do is it's really simple. If you don't want to dance, you don't even want to talk, you can literally point and you can point, you can have words come up and and it's just very simple because there's words and people read them and there's background music. You pick trending music and there's different apps and different resources to find what music is trending. I actually also, Cindy, like I did a couple of podcast episodes on my podcast, Mesmerizing Marketing Podcast, so the audience can listen to those on Instagram, how to use Instagram and Instagram Reels, and it goes into much more detail. But basically, you're literally just going to, put it on your calendar. The first and most important thing is if you put it on your calendar, it's not going to get done. So you have to commit to doing it. You have to commit the time. And if you would not cancel, I say, if you wouldn't cancel a meeting with one of your clients, right? Don't cancel a meeting to yourself to work on your marketing and to work on your brand. So you have to put it on the calendar. Once you put it on the calendar, then the next step is you want to make it simple. So you're not going to have time to do this every day. You want to pick a day when you're really not that busy. And if you're female, you want to get together 2 or 3 outfits, and then you're going to, put on your makeup and fix your hair. It's done. And then you have a tripod. Put it on the timer for 10 seconds. You let it record, and you do not watch the video. You don't watch the take, the playback. You literally record for one concept. You're going to record 3 or 4 or 5 times. Out of those 3 to 4 or 5 times, I guarantee you're going to have one reel in there that you can use. That's perfect. You don't need to watch them. So what I do is I record, then I go on to the next concept, and then I record 5 takes. I go on to the next concept. And then what I do is I later on that evening, I'll look at them, I'll watch them, I'll delete what I don't like at all. I'll make a folder on my iPhone called Reels week of October 30th or whatever. And then I know, and Reels to edit. So I know that these are ones I like and I need to go edit them. And once I edit them, they're ready to post. I'll make another folder, Reels ready to post week of November 5th, right? And it makes it really streamlined and it makes the whole process really easy just to get out there and do it. Literally, you can dedicate 1.5 hour a week, and you can produce content for the next 2 weeks if you're strategic about it.
That is such great advice on so many levels that, if you don't schedule it, it's not going to happen. So make it a priority and schedule it. I love the idea about doing multiple ones and not watching it so you don't get yourself all flipped out, or you don't start that little inner critic judging it. Just get her done, get it out, and then start worrying about. Now, how do you kick it up then from there to start getting a little more entertainment value? Is it about just bringing creativity and getting comfortable and fun with them?
Yeah, I think it's about creativity, and it's about don't be afraid to show a little bit of your personality. I think this is one thing that we've had many rooms about these kind of things on Clubhouse, like in my lawyers mastermind club. And we've talked about this a lot. And I think that now lawyers understand that it is okay to show your personality, because when someone's going to hire you, they're going to hire you because maybe they have something in common. So for example, if you like to go skiing, in the wintertime, and you like to do that for your vacation, post some photos, because people like might resonate with that. If you have a cute Maltese puppy, post some photos of that. If you're into fashion, show some of your fashion sense and outfits, because people don't just want the days of them being a boring lawyer are over. They want someone who can make them laugh, who can entertain them, who is a little bit of a badass, who is like going to fight for them. And people need to see that. They need to see that on social media. I know, like, a lawyer, and she's amazing, Tina, and she'll post stories on Instagram, and she's showing her, like how she would handle a case, and actual like little tidbits of Zoom of her conversations with people, and people are seeing like, okay, she's really good at what she does, and that's what that portrays.
Well, and I'm laughing because this is so timely. I literally just had a conversation this morning because we're getting a new website, and the person who did it, that had the homepage with the legal books, the big legal. Here it's Ontario reports, all in thing. And I'm like, no. And I said exactly what you just said. The days of the traditional stodgy lawyer are gone. That is not our image. I want something edgy. I want something that reflects my personality and the personality of the firm. So perfect timing. And I'd love if you can tell us, how can social media and marketing help lawyers enhance their practice experience, other than even getting visibility, but so that they can practice with more purpose and passion? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, with social media, it's also going to increase their confidence. And confidence is something that they need to be comfortable to win a case in court, to go up for that battle. Even when you walk into a courtroom, all eyes on you. So if you're in litigation and you walk into a courtroom, everyone's looking at you. They are judging you. They are evaluating you. They are trying to, come up with stories in their mind about you, right? So instead of letting them come up with a story about you, why don't you write your own story, right? And you
Right.
can write your own story by the presence that you have when you walk into a room. It's how you walk, how you talk, how you carry yourself, how you dress. That's really important too. I have a friend, and he does, like, for attorneys, like he works with, like in Silicon Valley, like type of attorneys and stuff, and he helps them, like, improve their presence for the courtroom, because that's really important, and it can make the difference between them sometimes winning the case or not winning the case, because everyone's looking, all eyes are on that person. And it is important. It's important, like we call it executive presence, to have that. And I think if you put yourself out there on social media, and if there's anything you do that you're a little bit out of your comfort zone, but you know that it's really good for you, what happens is that's how you grow as an attorney. That's how you grow as a person. And that's what's going to elevate you to that next level of success, is by embracing the little bit of that discomfort, because it might be uncomfortable once, twice. The next time around you have to do it, you're going to be blown away by, oh my God, I really, I'm not scared of this anymore. I can do this. And it's that confidence. And when you have confidence, it shows, and it's contagious, and you have it also, confidence equals conviction. And those two things in the legal industry are really essential.
Yeah. That is so good. This get out your comfort zone. I'm such a big advocate of that. And in the law in particular, it's interesting because when we first start practicing, we get thrown into hearings often, I think for many lawyers, when you're not yet equipped for it, right? I know for my first hearing, I'd never even been to an arbitration hearing, and suddenly I'm thrown in having to do it. And that we're prepared to find our way through and get past the discomfort because we believe it's expected of us. But then we get stuck in that way and we don't. And so I love this idea about, hey, if you're going to continue to grow as an attorney and keep with the times and be able to show up and be passionate and have fun with it, you're going to need to get outside your comfort zone. I think that's such great advice. And tied to that, because I think as our careers go on in law, we get so into that sort of soul sucking fight mode, if you will, that it can be tough to keep rekindling that passion. So, how does your work, this sort of social media and marketing, help attorneys get away from that more traditional competitive mode to find a better way to practice?
I think that if once they try it, right? If they've never tried it, they're going to have preconceived notions about social media. They're going to have preconceived notions about, well, I'm an attorney. I can't be out on TikTok or dancing, or I can't be doing this and it doesn't look good. But it's their preconceived notion, right?
Yeah.
And once they get out of their comfort zone and they actually try it and they actually do that, I think they're going to see that there's a whole different world out there. And what they're going to find is that they actually enjoy doing it. When they do it, it makes them feel happy and more confident. Not to mention, they're getting leads and cases off of it. And this is from actual attorneys that I work with that I've heard, like the ones that were in my Reels challenge. They told me, like, oh, I got a case off of that reel. Remember that one that I did? And I did that like 4 months ago, 4 months after the fact, because it's out there forever. People can find it and they can look at it, right? And that's the thing. So I think it elevates, elevates people on so many different levels. And it's just that edge too. It's that confidence of that. And it's also about being everywhere. I think,
Mm.
when you're an attorney and you think about you're driving down the freeway and you see a billboard, you go on a website and you get remarketed and retargeted with someone's banner ad, and you see them everywhere. It's like this assumption that people make, well, if they're everywhere, they must be good. They
Yeah.
must be popular. They must be like celebrity status, right? So it's the perception that you can create. I always tell people too, you can be working in the basement, right? But then your website is that's a front door to your business. Like nobody knows, right? But your website has to look good. It's like the first impression that people are getting when they're walking into your door. That's your online digital door.
Yeah.
That's like the metaverse. That's like people are knocking on your door and you open it up. Do you want to have a clean, beautiful house that looks organized, or do you want to have a messy, disorganized place? Because if they see the messy, disorganized, they're not going to be very confident in giving you that case, because they're going to say, well, if you can't even manage that aspect, how are you going to manage winning my case for me?
Yeah. And I'd be really interested in your perspective, Dimple, because as you were talking about that, getting out of your comfort zone and trying these things on, I imagine for many lawyers, it would then also allow them to just show up. Like the ripple effect would be that they show up differently with their clients. They get out of that stodgy lawyer mode and they have better relationships with their clients because they show up more authentically, more real, build those stronger bonds with their clients who see them in a different capacity. What's your experience around that?
I think now, I mean, I think back in the day, things were different and things have changed a lot from like 10 years ago, from 15 years ago, and things will continue to change at a very fast pace, not even years and years. Every 6 months, things are going to change. And you have to be willing to change as well. And I think now what I'm finding is a lot of lawyers and lawyers that have clients, their clients end up, becoming in a way friends.
Yeah.
They end up like going to their kids' graduation parties or their, barbecue get-togethers, and they form this friendship because it's more personal. It's not just about doing the job. It's not a transaction, right? And I think that's the mistake that lawyers make sometimes, doctors make. If you treat people like a transaction,
Yeah.
like you're not going to get a return transaction,
Yeah.
right? You have to treat them like human beings and people. You have to genuinely care,
Yeah.
and I think part of being a lawyer is that you have to show your client that you truly care about them and they're not just a number. They're not just a paycheck.
Yeah, I love that. That's so important. And what's the thing that you find with your clients that they know now that they wish they'd known when they first started?
I think when they first start, I think a lot of them are hesitant to invest in marketing because they're just starting out and they don't have a steady, stream of like business coming in. But I think the mistake is that now they don't necessarily have to hire someone and pay someone money, but they do need to make time then to do their own marketing.
Yeah.
They have to do one or the other, right? It's a give and take. Either you have time and you do it on your own, but you have to learn how to do it really well on your own. And you can get someone to coach you to do that. Like, I mean, I coach lawyers all the time on, marketing strategy, how to create content, how to do this. But if you don't have the time to do it on your own, you have to hire someone because you can't do it all. And
Yeah.
even though being a lawyer is very much like being an entrepreneur, and you do have to wear many hats and you have to be, doing a million things, but you also have to understand sometimes that you're not going to be good at everything. And if marketing is not your forte, then hire someone else to do it. If, hiring the right people and interviewing them effectively is not your forte, then get someone else to do it. Because who you bring into your firm to work with you, that's where another mistake I see. You have to be really careful in vetting that person, very careful in who's you're going to have this like partnership with.
Yeah.
Because if the partnership doesn't work out, it's almost like having a divorce, right? It's very difficult to end that partnership, in a business environment. And I think that, sometimes people think, oh, this person's a good fit, but you really have to do your due diligence to interview them like you would get interviewed if you were going to work at a big law firm,
Yeah.
and go through that process where you're not just deciding spontaneously, oh, I went to law school with this person, so I think they would be a good fit to become my partner, and then and 6 months later it may not work out. I think it's really, and sometimes though people, you know, they don't show their true colors, and there's nothing you can do about that. In that case, there's nothing you can do except understand that when you have a partnership and you're forming that partnership, some good questions and things to talk about prior to, signing on the dotted line is really get a clear understanding of who's going to handle what. Because when you have a partnership in the legal industry, one person's going to have to be in charge of the marketing.
Yeah.
One person's going to have to be in charge of, maybe growing the firm and outreach, or doing, events where you're doing, going to like, industry related events and you have a booth there. So I think you have to figure out like, what are the strengths of each person and assign certain tasks to them based on those strengths. And then you have to see if you have everything that you need. And if there's still something missing, you might have to hire like a paralegal or a marketing person or whatever it happens to be to fill that gap.
Yeah. So great. And it's interesting because as you were speaking, it just struck me. I mean, I talk often, obviously, this podcast is called Practicing with Purpose for Lawyers Only. And I think you've got that dual meaning of purpose. Like often people talk about purpose and they're like, bringing that passion, which I talk about often. But you've really hit on the other aspect of purpose as well, which is being intentional, right? Be intentional about having a marketing plan. Be intentional about who does what and who's going to be in charge of it. Be intentional about who you want to show up as and whether you want to do it yourself or whether this isn't your forte and you're going to offload that. But rather than staying away from it altogether, be intentional about how you can do the best for your practice, be able to show up as the best version, attract those best clients. I love that, Dimple. That was
Yeah.
such great input.
And I'm going to add, like, not just being intentional, but also being, strategic.
Yes.
You have to be strategic. And I think there's one thing of like, okay, doing marketing and spending thousands of dollars on it. But also the other mistake is you're putting all your eggs in one basket. What happens if that basket is no longer there? What are you going to do then? So I think you have to be strategic. And that's what I say is like, everything I do for my clients, it's a strategy. When people say, well, how much do you charge for this? And what is it? I don't do cookie cutter packages. Everything is customized according to the needs and the goals of a specific law firm or lawyer and where they want to be. And what is it that they really need help with? Where's the gap of what they're already doing and what they should be doing? And, and how are they going to get to that point? Like if they're doing a lot of things, but yet they don't have they don't have that presence that can take their credibility to the next level. Like they don't have a book, they don't have a YouTube channel, they don't have, a podcast, they don't have even a lead magnet or an email list. Like how can we help them get those things in place so that they're building a practice not only that's sustainable for the short term, but that's sustainable for the long-term future that they can build to be a success that they can sell down the road when they want to retire as well. And, or they can hand it over to someone else because they've taken the time to build those SOPs and to, build like all these processes for even for hiring, for onboarding, for, how do you do the marketing? Like what's the process? Like what are we, creating in terms of content? How much content? All of those things.
So good. So good. And I can't believe how fast the time has gone here. This is amazing. We're definitely going to have to get you back for a part two on this. And I normally like to end as well by asking, what is one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've ever had in your life? It doesn't have to be around this issue, Dimple. It can be on anything. What would you say is one of your greatest mindset shifts?
I think, the greatest mindset shift is literally what I like to say is like you should write a letter to yourself and you date it a month from now and you write it as if you've already obtained all of those things. I would say, oh, today is like whatever, today's like the 21st. So I would say, oh, today is December 24th. I woke up feeling super excited for this happening and accomplishing this and that and everything. And then you take this letter as if, you've accomplished all of these things that you have on your list of goals, whether they're life goals, whether they're personal goals, whether they are relationship goals. And then you read this letter to yourself every morning. You read this letter to yourself every night. And what happens is you will find that if you actually do read it twice a day and a month later, you're going to see that a lot of the things that you put in that letter have come true, you
Mm,
know? And it's about that, programming your brain and programming your mindset to have that positive mindset. And I think it starts with having the right mindset because when you're in the wrong mind frame, nothing's going to work. And even your marketing's not going to work. Your, partnership is not going to work. So I think sometimes, you have to evaluate if you need to change your mindset.
yeah. Such a powerful but simple strategy. I think that's fantastic advice to people because it's that power of creating an expectation of something. Our brain wants to give us what it thinks we want. So when we're reading a letter as if this has already happened, our brain is finding ways to make it happen without us even realizing it. I think that's such great advice. Well, thank you so much, Dimple, for being here. You have just given us loads of value today. Really appreciate having you here with us.
Thank you so much, Cindy.
And for our listeners out there and our viewers, you want to definitely take a look and learn more about Dimple. I really encourage you to reach out to her. On Clubhouse, you can search for her by name or by her handle at Marketing Expert. Check her out on Instagram, where her handle is She Wears Stilettos, which I just love, one of my favorite handles. And also, you can check her out on Twitter. She's got the podcast. We'll make sure to have all of that stuff thrown in the show notes as well for you so that you can make sure to reach out to Dimple and get yourself kickstarted on social media and marketing so that you can find a better way to practice for yourself. Start attracting clients that are the clients you want to work with and having relationships with them that are going to allow you to have a more fulfilling practice on purpose. Now, I'm sure you all got loads of value from this episode. If you haven't already subscribed, please make sure to do so and make sure to share it with anyone else that you think could get some value from this message, both generally for the podcast about practicing more on purpose, but also on this particular episode, be making sure to share that so people can get over that fear of marketing and social media so they can kick up their practice to the next level. And that is a wrap for this episode. So until next time, I invite you to go forth and find ways that you can practice on purpose and find a better way to practice law so that you can rekindle your passion and make a difference in the world. Most of us start law because we want to make a difference. Find your way to get back to that passion and negotiate your best life on your terms. Until next time.